Can we have a round of applause for the panelists, please? Over to you, Rinpoche.
Namo Buddhaya. This is our fourth or last session, so I extend my warm welcome to all panelists and distinguished Rinpoches and all scholars and Upasak and Upasikas. Actually, at the outset, I would like to apologize that my English is not good enough to, present or moderate such August, but because IBC is the part of Ministry of Culture, and myself is also employee of the Ministry of Culture. So, the Director General, Shri Haldarji, sent me the invitation, so I can't refuse, and I am here. I just would like to say a few words on Nalanda Mahavihara and its contribution in the subject of Buddha Dhamma. In ancient time, Rajgiri, the capital of Magadha, and Nalanda served as the foremost center of education. The Buddha's supreme disciple, Shariputra and Maudgalyan, were originally from Nalanda and also attained parinirvana there. It was prophesied that if the vihara were to be established at Sariputra birthplace, it would become a flourishing seat of the teaching and learning of the Buddha's teaching. Thus, the Buddha had foretold that Nalanda would become a primary center for the Buddhist philosophical education. After Shariputra passing away, the Buddha himself consecrated his parinirvana stupa there. Therefore, Nalanda is not only a sacred site, but also the historical, prominent landmark within the ancient Indian tradition of knowledge. The excavated site of Nalanda University, as seen today, dates back to the 5th, 6th century of the Gupta dynasty. It was like a modern university with the common libraries, lecturer halls, and common dining facilities. Thousands of students were entering through the rigorous entrance examination and resided in one-side dormitories. Because of this sophisticated structure, it is widely considered to be the first residential university in the world. In terms of theme of the session, contribution of Nalanda Mahavihara and global dissemination of the unique legacy of Nalanda as global center for knowledge. Historically, Chinese pilgrimage, such as Hansang, Itsang, etc., came to Nalanda to study and eventually took numerous sutras and shastra back to China. They started translating the Sanskrit Buddhist sutras and shastra of Nalanda Buddhist tradition, which later became a collection that exists today in approximately 100 volumes of Buddhist sutras and shastras translated from Sanskrit into Chinese. Likewise, the Nalanda Buddhist tradition literatures were also translated from Sanskrit into Japanese, and Korean languages. Similarly, another great historic moment of dissemination of the legacy of Nalanda Mahavihara was time when the Buddha's teaching went to Tibet in 7th, 8th century. The Tibetan scholars Thommi Sambhota came to India, studied at Nalanda, developed the Tibetan script, vowel and consonant based on the Sanskrit grammar system of the Panini. This followed the massive translation moment of translating the Buddhist sutras and shastra from Sanskrit to Tibet. As a result, we are today Kanjur, Tibetan translation of Sutra, words of the Buddha, comprising approximately 103 volumes, containing over 1,000 texts in over 70,000 pages. Likewise, we have the Tengyur, Tibetan Acharya, consisting approximately 215 volumes, containing 4,567 texts in over 161,800 pages. These texts included a vast collection of subjects, including philosophy, philology, logic, medicine, astrology, poetry, agriculture, etc. of the Nalanda tradition. Similarly, the entire collection of Buddhist sutras and shastra, we find the Buddhist monastery and temple of the Mongolia, Bhutan, and Nepal are also translation of the Sanskrit Buddhist literature of the Nalanda Buddhist tradition. While the physical structure of Nalanda remains in ruin today, in its intellectual and spiritual lineage have been fully preserved within the Indo-Tibetan Nalanda Buddhist tradition from the 8th century onward to present day. Therefore, I believe that Nalanda knowledge tradition remain full intact and vibrant. Moreover, the arrival of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, His Holiness Miling Tichen Rinpoche, His Holiness Sakya Tenzin, His Holiness Karmapa, His Holiness Dukchen, and many others higher Tibetan Lama into exile in India after 1959 marks a crucial moment. The revival of Nalanda tradition on its original soil in the plain of Arebhumi. Though in the Indian Himalayan region, such as Ladakh, Himachal, Arunachal, and Sikkim, Buddhist tradition was already there being practicing from the beginning. Most importantly, the heart of Nalanda knowledge tradition is not only back in India, but has actual preserved all over the world as a living tradition. The Nalanda tradition was not only preserved within the Indo-Tibetan Nalanda Buddhist tradition, but was enormously enriched with the commentaries written by Tibetan Buddhist master on the Shastras, written by Indian Buddhist master. Today, all these literatures are accessible to the world physically, digitally, and through the translation in many cases. The entire collection of Nalanda Buddhist literature is preserved today in major libraries of the world in various forms, written, translation, audio, video. I believe that now the legacy of literary lineage of the Nalanda Buddhist tradition will never be disappear from the world because it is separate across the world. And this, I see, is mainly due to the many years of effort of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Today, if one were to become a practitioner of Nalanda Buddhist tradition, the textual resources for it are available and accessible in the various languages, whether it's the Tripitaka itself or their commentary through the digital Buddhist resources platform, such as one started by Jean Smith, the Buddhist Digital Resource Center, Digital Sanskrit Buddhist Canon Project of Nagarjuna Institute, and the University of West. His Holiness Karmapa's others, and many other platforms in various languages. Also, there was many research and translation talks have come up with the functioning of the searching parallel of the text, and many searchable database of the text have been created. In terms of physical libraries, almost all the major Tibetan Buddhist monasteries and institutes have built their own libraries, and their resources are accessible through the digital platform. In fact, in terms of my own home in Kinnor, we have the entire physical collection of Kanjur, Tenjur, Sungmum in our shrine hall. Hence, the fully alive Nalanda legacy is vibrantly thriving today. In essence, Nalanda is Mahayana Buddhist tradition, and at the core of Nalanda, Mahayana Buddhist tradition is the profound aspiration, Buddho Bhaveyam Jagato Hita. May I become a Buddha for the benefit of all beings. This aspiration is rooted in the philosophy of Pratitya Samutpada, or interdependent origination, the understanding that all things exist only dependent upon others. I am myself a Buddhist practitioner, basically, and I generally speak or teach about how profound teaching of the Buddha on anicca and pratitya samutpada can be applied in one's life. But I don't know much about how they can be applied in international relations, politically, etc. However, I am confident that if one contemplates on the Buddha's teaching on anicca, impermanent, all composite phenomena as impermanent, and no inherent existence, and become fully convinced that everything is impermanent, one will be realized that there is nothing to say, such as mine and yours. No notion of my country and your country, because once one is died, there is nothing such as my things and my country. If such an understanding of impermanence can be reached by the global leaders, I think all problems in the world will disappear. The second profound teaching is the philosophy of pratitya samutpada, the understanding that we all exist merely by virtues on depending on each other. Just take example, one simple thing, such as oxygen. We cannot survive even a minute without it. Likewise, we exist by depending on four elements: earth, water, fire, wind. These four elements in turn depend on each other, as earth depends on water, water depends on earth, likewise the fire depends on wind, and so on, vice versa. Hence, if there is elements become the polluted and diminished, and therefore not appropriate for use. Imagine what the world would be like. There would be no way to survive. Having a complete understanding of pratitya samutpada and anicca is the crucial for the balance and peaceful living. Similarly, treating other and oneself as other, is the another significant part of the realization. There are essence of Buddha's teaching, and these are the fundamental philosophy, principle of Nalanda Buddhist tradition. Such a profound philosophy, principle, has come only from the Indian Nalanda Buddhist tradition. There is no articulation of such a profound philosophy in other faith and philosophy. We must strive to maintain this profound philosophy originated from the Indian Nalanda Buddhist tradition. I strongly believe that if we can deeply contemplate and propagate this philosophy of interdependence throughout the world, global peace will follow as natural consequence. Could you light how Nalanda tradition disseminated to Bhutan? First.
Thank you, Venerable Professor, and thank you, General Secretary IBC and the Director General IBC for having us here today. Well, knowledge, the truth doesn't have boundaries. Probably if there's a boundary for truth, that would be ignorance. So after the enlightenment of the Buddha and Bodh Gaya, the truth has been taught. The truth has been taught in the sense truth exists at all times, with or without the Buddha's presence. What Buddha did was to show the technicalities as to how to get that, to that, the essence of the truth itself. And that, I think, is, the Buddha professed a very a unique way of getting to the truth. And that's where he excels in, showing the path. Having shown the path, it has been, as you rightly pointed out, volumes and thousands of pages that we still have, which sometimes may not be as easy to digest, for many. So hence, the Nalanda tradition became so important because through their research, through their debate, through their propagation and teachings, and through their practices of what the Buddha taught, has this become so convenient for us, the followers of the same tradition, the Nalanda tradition of India, that we have the opportunity, even to this day, to sort of practice and do the same, not in the same setting, but in more or less in the same kind of an environment of our own. So the teachings, the profound teachings of the truth, or the technicality to reach the truth, has, as I started in the beginning, no boundaries. It has gone from, to the nearest, to the far off places around the globe, and who knows where else where we wouldn't be seeing. And certainly Bhutan was not left out. Although a small Himalayan country, the first probably goes back to 11th or 12th centuries, where teachings actually the 7th century, right? That's when Guru Rinpoche visited Tibet. But then Guru Rinpoche visited Bhutan even before Tibet, and in the process, he had turned the three wheels of the Dharma as well. After that...
Okay. It means you are saying that Bhutan was introduced by Guru Rinpoche. Buddhism was introduced by first Guru Rinpoche, right?
Well,
so that
Guru
is the
Rinpoche visited in the 7th century and
Okay.
propagated the teachings that are sublime, so I'd assume so.
Okay, yes. Now, because you are from Nepal, so could you like how Buddhism came to, Nepal?
Thank you, Venerable Professor. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Thank you for this very genuine question. We have Swayambhu Purana, our mythological doctrine is there. Then we have Gopal Bangshavali, anthology, one record of the history is there. And they mention that Samrat Ashoka, who sent his Majjantika Thera to the Himalayan region to disseminate Buddha's teaching. When Majjantika Thera went to Himalayan region, that means automatically the teachings of Buddha also. From this source also we can justify that Buddha's teachings also went to Nepal. This is another point. And then during the time of, in the 5th century, 6th century, 7th century, in our Nepalese history, we term it as a Lichavi period. Lichavi kings ruled there in Nepal that time. And that time also, during the time of Mandev, if we talk about Amsubarma or Narendra Dev, those Lichavi kings, in the history, we have a recorded history that Buddha's teachings are there and Buddhist practices are already well established there. But, the Nalanda, when Nalanda was established very well, and then Nepal became a bridge, home, connecting Nalanda and Tibet. Many scholars, masters...
Now, you have any evidence who came to Nalanda from Nepal?
Okay.
Is there any?
One evidence, if we talk about history, Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava himself, his teacher was, Hunkara Bajra, belongs to Nepal. And then when Padmasambhava, went to Nalanda, he went by the route of Nepal Mandala, Nepal. And then in Nepal also, in Phorping, and in many places of Nepal also, we have the caves and places where Guru Padmasambhava had meditated for a long time.
No, I am asking any documents in Nepali where mentioned that such master visited Nepal, Nalanda to study. My
from
question
Nepal.
was actually that.
From Nepal, Lila Bajra was one master from Nepal who came here in Nalanda and he studied.
Right.
After him, Advaya Bajra. Advaya Bajra, after completing his study at Nalanda, he came back here in Nepal and
Actually,
he wrote
Advaya Bajra was Indian.
Advaya Bajra Sangraha. Text is there. Which define and how to practice monastic activities, and everything is mentioned there in detail. It follows the Nalanda tradition. And then after that, now we have the other masters also. Many other masters like Phantimpa brothers, Bagiswar Kirti, and then we can say Mahakaruna, Santi Sri. Number of masters and scholars are there who came here at Nalanda, who studied and then they established the Nalanda tradition in Kathmandu.
It means there is great contribution
Yes.
of Nalanda to disseminate Buddhism in Nepal. Anyway,
Yes.
thank you. Now, my question is for Siva Sayaji. Since you are the HOD School of Buddhist Studies and Civilization and Director International Affairs, so I would like to know how Nalanda tradition influenced to global civilization, world civilization. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. First of all, I great thankful to the IBC, Secretary General, Director General, Director Pan sir. So, whatever the conversation has given for me, the role of the revival of Nalanda, or contribution to the global and the scenario challenges. Here, I would like to make 4 important reflection: the contribution of Nalanda and the facing in the global challenges. It is a great privilege for me to speak on that. As the earlier speakers already said, that Nalanda has one of the world historical residential university. Not only the university, it is institute of learning. It was a cosmopolitan, intellectual, and where ideas and the cultures and philosophy met together in the one united place. So here, I would like to mention that the revival of Nalanda in the modern, we are having some institutions, particularly I would like to mention the 2, the Nalanda University and the Nalanda Mahavira. So this is a new idea, new concept which was taken from the world, the ideas and philosophy and the pedagogy system, what real Nalanda was happened. So the today revival of Nalanda has, through these institutions, I would like to make, it represents not more than the physical reconstruction and the ancient center. At the same time, it is a revival in the intellectual tradition rooted in the openness, the plurality and ethical reflection. So in the reflection, there are the 4 directions I would like to introduce. First, the revival of Nalanda, historical role in the ground of cultures in the several, but I would like to focus in the 4 attempts. The first one is how Nalanda re-established in space of intercultural dialogue, just as the new Nalanda brings together the students and scholars from the diverse countries and disciplines. It promotes the academic environment where the different cultural, the perspective not only the accommodate but actively engage. So in the modern scenario, what the scholars and students are required, what they learn from the ancient setup of the pedagogy system, which are located in the new Nalanda, Nalanda and the Nalanda University. So in this way, the whole world, it is increasingly marked by cultural tensions and diversions. The modal dialogue both are relevant and necessary. This is the perspective I would like to mention. The second, yes sir. Second, the revival, it constitutes the ancient tradition inquiry with the contemporary global. So here, I would like to make the 2-3 important points. The new Nalanda, the old Nalanda legacy is contributing or continuing significantly discourse on peace and compassion and conflict resolution. So here, the values of non-violence, compassion and the middle path, central to the Buddhist thought, what you were sending in the earlier the description. So it's offer the framework which are facing the Buddhist framework which are followed from the ancient Nalanda tradition which will inculcate in the new Nalanda both institutions. The 4th one, the revival of Nalanda global cooperation and the cultural diplomacy. Here, historically, Nalanda functioned shared in the intellectual heritage of Asia, but today its re-emergence foster renewed the academic and the cultural connecting among the nations, particularly within Asia. So importantly, Nalanda, it's make make it ancient linkage wisdom with the
Okay.
particular new dimension.
Generally, my opinion is, when I look how Nalanda or Buddhist, influence to the global civilization or global
Challenge.
you can say culture kind of. When I see, only in the Buddhism, it says that Sri Lankan Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and so on and so on, they divide to the geographically. In the rest of other religion, you cannot divide in this way. You never say American Muslim, Chinese Muslim, Chinese Hindu, Chinese Christian, and this and that. But with the Buddhism, there is Chinese, Tibetan, Hindu, even now going to be American Buddhism kind of. Why this? Because Buddhism emphasizes very much on how to train your mind.
Yes, sir.
Apart from that, they do not emphasize on what kind of culture you are following. What kind of uniform dress you are having, what kind of food you are eating kind.
Yes, sir.
Buddha emphasized only avoid from unwholesome action, do good, tame your mind. That is the essence. That is doctrine of Buddhism. Emphasize that. Therefore, Buddhism gives space
Yes, sir.
to world.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, Buddhism become once light of Asia kind of.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I
sir.
think in my view.
Yes.
Anyhow, okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
second, we go to second part.
Yes,
The dissemination, contemporary relevance.
Yes, sir.
Could you elaborate how Nalanda tradition relevant in this present scenario where people are following the Darwin theory kind of, those who are powerful, they will live kind of, survival of the fittest kind of. In the against of that, how Nalanda tradition can counter or how relevance, could you light on that?
Just picking up from what you just made a comment on Professor G's presentation, as that I think going from country to country and giving Buddhism a tag of its own, I would say is a charm in itself. Well, that's not the question that you've asked, but I'm just trying to sort of continue on what has been asked. But then, if I understand correctly as to what you're saying or asking, is that Buddhism is the science of mind, whereas the present religion or the modern religion, which is science, seem to go hand in hand, except the other one is visual, whereas Buddhism is more like introvert. Having had the opportunity to work with the scientists from prestigious universities in the West, I have found out that science with their billion-dollar technology is stepping up on a baby step of what the Buddha taught some 2,500 years back. That in itself says how relevant, as I said in the very beginning, because truth lies there. It's for us to discover. And the best way of discovering was taught by the Buddha himself. So, and again, to reiterate what I've said in the first statement is that to be able to understand the teachings of the Buddha through dialect or through logic, and to sort of peel off directly from what the Buddha taught seems to be quite a stressful or a strenuous job. That was simplified by the scholars in the Nalanda University. Hence, we have, each one of us from different nations gathered here today, have the opportunity to just practice it to get to the same goal as where the Buddha went to, right? Or what the Buddha saw, I must say. Hence, be it in any tag or category or the nationalism that you would want to sort of create or want to own Buddhism, it is prevalent in the same category. The best example I can think of is that if you go to Bodh Gaya, in one of the busy sessions, an appropriate weather, I guess, you'd see people dressed like me, some in yellow robes, some in white, some in gray, some in black, all gathered to worship one idol or the spot, the power spot where the Buddha was enlightened. That in itself indicates that whether you take the ownership of Buddhism to any of the part of the world that you belong to, the essence of the teachings of the Buddha is the same. And as it says, the multiple nationalities of followers of the Buddha coming into Bodh Gaya to make its presence felt and to rever or pay respect to the Buddha statue or the environment or the space there in Bodh Gaya in itself shows that the core of Buddhism or the essence of Buddhism is one. And hence, the spread of Buddhism, and as spoken on the pages, I think it's not dogmatic in the sense.
Means, yes, this is because we are the follower of Buddha, of course, therefore we have faith toward Buddha, so people come to worship or people come to bow down to the Buddha and get blessed. But that is like faith kind of, that is in everywhere. In Christianity, they used to go to Makkah, Medina. And of course, Christians go to Jerusalem. This is very much similar. This doesn't make any distinct with the Nalanda tradition or Buddhist system. My question was, what is the essence, which counter to the survival of the fittest philosophy kind of? Yes.
Exactly, that's what I was.
Merely devotion doesn't work, I think. Yeah.
The Buddha statue that I see is absolutely a stone statue in a very powerful spot, curved by somebody who says it's exactly looking like the Buddha when he used to be present. My being in presence of, be it in Bodh Gaya or elsewhere, is that it reminds me that such a person existed some thousands of years back, who taught the technicalities or the path of the truth that leads to the freedom from samsara. That is the motivation that you go to any of the temples to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right.
Now,
I was just going to come to the point that you asked.
Same question for Professor Shivaji.
The Buddhist philosophy, it is the unique, it's easy to follow to everyone. The total Buddhist philosophy on the mind-centered. So human beings have the total thoughts, feelings, emotion on the basis of the mind and thinking. So in this way, the Buddhist ideas or thoughts or philosophy, it will goes to easily to reach every human. So that is the mind-centered for the Buddhist philosophy, what we. Secondly, the essence of the Buddhism or Buddhist teaching, it's spread from India to throughout the world. So the people who are making thoroughly to give the works on the mind, automatically the Buddhist ideas or thoughts mind can easily attack towards that. So every human having their own mind. So when their thoughts, when they have to use their thinking, in the positive or negative, whatever that, it should easily to get the touch what Buddha teach. So the total centrality of Buddhism, Buddha philosophy, the Buddha teachings, only on the basis of how to practice. That is the essence of the Dhamma. So in the ancient Nalanda, what was there are many scholars, like, some Chinese scholars, towards attract to them and come to the Nalanda and learn lot of the things from there and spread to their countries.
Okay, means among many methods, among many philosophy, among many, technique, which technique do you think, very impressive?
Yes, sir.
Or acceptable?
Yes, sir.
Actually, my question was actually that.
Yes, sir.
To global.
Yes, the philosophy, inquiry in the sense, on the method, what you said, that I was also playing that. The philosophy of inquiry means to know what reality is, what the truth is, what the, in the earlier discussion was also happened, what the reality is, to know what the truth, what the essence. So what the ultimate reality. So once the human started these questions, automatically they will easily touch what Buddha Dharma teaching. So this is the inquiry method is the only easy to work attract the Buddhism or Buddhist philosophy?
Generally, I think that in inquiry and debate and argument, these are the, attribute or quality of our philosophy,
Yes,
If there
sir.
is philosophy, definitely there is a question, answer, debate, and so on, Okay, anyhow, yes,
Yes,
Professor.
Thank you, Venerable. It's very, very important question and very significant question, I think. So I want to put 2-3 points, pertaining to this question. One is Buddhism is actually, it is science. It is very high and above than many communal dogma and others, the people's rituals, rites, and all those things, which are in the practice. I remember, one Vipassana teacher, Sayaji Uwakin, who used to say that denominator of every religion is to purification of mind. And that aspect, that fact is exactly here in Buddhism. Buddha taught how to purify our mind. For that, he taught, Eightfold Noble Paths. And there are many other philosophical aspects. I'm not here to explain all those things. You know very well. This is the fact. This is the height of Buddhism. That makes Buddhism, can sustain everywhere it goes. Next thing is that it is very versatile in nature. One example I want to put here, because many of in the scholarly world, the people may not have idea that Buddhism, from the time of the Buddha's time, from the Buddha's times, until now, without having any breaking, it is still being continued in Nepal. And here, in Nepal Mandala, generally we say Newar Buddhism. The patterns were not in favor of Buddhism that time, in the middle time. There was a Hindu dominance was there, and there are many other different factors were there. But those Newari people, they maintained their practice and the Buddhism there in the special way. Instead of, the celibate monks, they developed the concept of household monks even, just to protect Buddhism. They just discard their robe, and those aspects which are seen from the outer eyes, they maintain the inner qualities of the Buddhism. And we see still that the Buddhist practice we say Buddhism of Nepal Mandala, and we claim that Nepal Mandala is still it is a living museum of preservation and promotion of Buddhism. And more than this, the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism is preserved, and not only preserved but promoted in Kathmandu Valley.
Okay, here
It is this quality, I think. This has, the enabled the practitioners of Buddhism maintain the Buddhism in its life.
Here I would like to know, for example, Newar people, they practice very much Vajrayana tradition. They visualize deity kind of, They perform many rituals, dogmas, even Vajrayogini dance, this and that kind of many. Same thing, even deity visualization, recitation of mantra, visualization, performing fire art, these and those are available in Sanatan Hindu tradition also. How do you differentiate between Hindu deities? Say Hindu Tara. In Hinduism, Sanatan, they have Tara. Same Buddhism have Tara. How do you distinguish between this Tara and that Tara?
Yes, Venerable. There is vast difference.
What?
Actually, difference in essence. It seems that in practice, the similarities can be seen there, but the motivation of those practices are different. In Buddhism, those deities are just, the mental projections are only to realize the different mental states. Those cetasikas, or we say chaitya, and chittas. Actually, they are, just the projection of the chittas and cetasikas, that how we feel, then how we, act in our day-to-day life. While observing, imagining, and visualizing those, these deities means visualizing and understanding our own mental status actually in Buddhism. Okay, in practice, they create those deities and they realize sunyata, emptiness. Just for the realization of sunyata, those deities are created.
Okay.
They are just generated. But here, in other practices, okay, they are, it is the Brahman tradition, and there is some ultimate, some realities. They are outside there, okay, from our physical and mental status. Some power is there, which may be known as either Ishvara, and they, in other practices, they invoke those Ishvara and they try to link their soul Atma with the Brahma, and this is one technique. But here, nothing to do with this technique, okay, of the Buddhist practitioners. Very vast difference. We should not be confused with just seeing, they also talk about deities, and here they also talk about deities.
Okay, according to Buddhism, you are saying that the deity is only your mind fabrication.
Yes.
Apart from that, not reality.
Not
you
reality.
mean?
Yeah.
Right? It means that Tara and 5 Buddhas are merely.
Yes. They are philosophical and conceptually defined aspects, like the concept of Pancha Buddha is there. What does this say? What is the concept of Pancha? Pancha Buddha is actually, just a emanation of the enlightenment. Understanding in enlightenment its nature in different ways.
But according to Mahayana tradition, all sentient being possesses the Buddha nature, right? You have that potential to attain the Buddhahood. Yeah. Of course, Buddha have, 3 bodies: Dhamma body, enjoyment body, and Nirvana body. Apart from that, you cannot imagine Buddha kind of, right? Yeah. If Buddha have 3 body, that is then not like an illusion or fabrication kind of. When we visualize the Tara kind of, we visualize from the primordial mind, which is the Buddha nature. From that Buddha nature, we raise, Tara and deity and so on. How do you say that is, illusion kind of?
Yeah, okay. Thank you again.
For example, in Theravada tradition, they practice, they meditate on skeleton. What is different between meditation on skeleton and meditation on Tara? Is there any differences, or both are same?
Okay. Meditating on a skeleton is one samatha practice in Theravada tradition. Out of the 40 different samatha objects, there is one thing is there. It is a asubha meditation technique is there. Just to train the mind, okay, they practice that way. And here in the Mahayana tradition, actually in Mahayana tradition is also, they are not talking about, some extra, okay, the power, okay, other than our, the physical and mental phenomenon. Every talking and every discussions, every understanding is within this, the corporeality of the mind and mental factors and the body. There is nothing beyond this, beyond this periphery. So from here we should understand that the different techniques, have been developed. Okay, in Mahayana or in Vajrayana technique, in the Nalanda tradition also they have developed, just to ease our the practice, just to get enlightenment more quicker and quicker. Only these techniques have been developed.
Okay,
other than there is no the essence, reality, reality and existence of those, the fact which is beyond our mind, mental factors and our body.
No, maybe later maybe we discuss personally kind of. Okay, now once again we come to our topic kind of. Please, again, I would like to, which theory, which view, which concept very much relevant to contemporary world.
Simply put, I think logic, unbiased logic, is the basis of all establishment of all truth. So without unbiased logic, faith itself does not or will not take you much further. using
हो गया हाँ ठीक है okay. Now time is I think over. Just only simply always I use to my student, the uniqueness of Nalanda tradition, whether it is or Buddhism, interdependent origination. Understanding of interdependent origination make person very honest, kind, and so on. I gave example to my student. For every morning in breakfast, we have tea every time. During the breakfast, we need to pass and we need to think of the history of tea. The leaves of tea, where does it come from? Need to contemplate on. The tea leaf is coming from Assam, Darjeeling, Sikkim, tea bagan, where people are working hard. They are put their kids to back and, tied with the shawl or whatever, and in rain, in stretching sun, they are plugging, tea leaves, and through many labor process come to our tables, right? Likewise, sugar cane, who grow, work hard by, farmers and so on, milk. And if we contemplate the kindness of others, we are enjoying this cup of tea. Then when we come across with the poor people, labor, hard worker, our compassion comes by its own. This is what we need. This is what we need. This is all interdependent origination. As I mentioned in my paper, if there is no oxygen for moment, where is I am? Where is me and where is mine? Kind of. See, we are all interdependent. We are dependent on food. Who create? Who produce? Think of that. We are wearing clothes. Where does this come from? So, most important thing in Buddhism, I think, interdependent origination.
Yes,
and
sir.
every day I use to my colleagues, professors. You are professor because of the students, okay? If there were no student, no way you are professor. You are getting salary in the name of student. If you don't justice with the students, never be, karma will give you, peace, kind of, right? Everything like that. If officer, because of his employee, if king, because of his public, everywhere, we are all independent. This is what we need to know. If we know that we are all independent, without which our existence is nothing more. If we are able to generate such kind of attitude, I think world will peace. It's come by its own. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. I will request Professor Ravindra Pant, Director IBC, to please come on the dais and felicitate our panelists. First, our moderator, Venerable Professor Dr. Wangchuk Dorjee Negi.